killed in
In the darkness of a long tunnel,
music
the
festival.
people, as if crushed by a rock, reaching up to their necks,
What the frick?
were trying to raise their heads higher and take at least one more breath. Yet the lack of space was so severe that their ribcage had no way of expanding, and the rarefied air was becoming more and more devoid of oxygen. All because every square millimeter of the space was already taken by someone else.
That's
The
crazy.
people were choking each other to death, breaking each other's ribs
What?
with their elbows, and stomping on those who fell under their feet.
What?
It would be nice if all this was a horror movie plot, but this is a true story of one music festival. So, viewer discretion is
Is
advised.
advised. Drinks.
In July of 2010, a young Australian named Clancy Ridley left her job and went to Europe. She was planning to go on a 3-month trip of her dreams, accompanied by her friend. The first stop on their adventure was the Love Parade, one of the world's biggest tech music festivals, which had been held regularly in
Oh my
various German
God.
cities since 1989.
God.
In 2010, the show was held
Hold on, bro, I really choked. Oh my god. Look, it scared me.
in Duisburg, a city in the west of the country with a population of less than 500,000. It was the first time a decision was made to hold the Love Parade in a closed area, a defunct railway station with an area of approximately 11.5 hectares was chosen for this.
Okay.
The main stage was installed at the station's center, and
Okay.
16 movable platforms with different music shows were supposed to
Oh,
circle it.
okay.
So, from the early morning of July 24th, techno music fans started arriving at the railway station in Duisburg. In the afternoon, the number of people in the area reached a few 100,000. The area was patrolled by over 3,000 police officers and around 1,500 volunteers.
Wow.
60 ambulance cars were on duty nearby. Yet calling the doctors became an enormous problem because the cars were physically unable to ride through the crowd. At the same time, the only entrance to the event was through an underground tunnel 240 meters long, from the side where it lay underneath the railway tracks. The only exit was, respectively, on the other side, near the highway. Yet at that moment, the tunnel was completely packed with people.
What?
Clancy Ridley and her friend were among them. Somewhere near stood 2 young Spanish girls they didn't know. Clara and Marta, 2 exchange students who were also friends. For them, Love Parade was supposed to become a goodbye party before going home. The crowd was slowly moving forward, unaware that the organizers had decided to close the area temporarily because it was packed over its capacity. The police closed the tunnel off in 3 places, not allowing people to enter it from the tracks and from the highways,
Okay.
thus keeping them from trespassing into the festival area.
Okay.
This decision triggered the following disaster. Despite the orders from the police to step back, thousands of people continued moving toward the tunnel, further constricting those who were already inside. At the same time, some visitors turned in the opposite direction,
The opposite
hoping to get
direction?
out of the underpass. Yet it turned out to be impossible. The tunnel was so packed that people started running out of oxygen, which caused a wave of panic.
What?
Those still in the open air started scaling the steep hills near the underpass, breaking the fences, and pushing the other visitors under the crowd's feet. Others were climbing over the barriers installed by the police, trying to get to any high place, begging to be pulled up from the roaring human river. Panic and exhaustion made the people push and crush each other even more. Those unlucky enough to fall at that moment disappeared as if they drowned in the crowd.
What?
The police lost any control over the situation whatsoever, and this horror just went on for over an hour until the first teams of medical specialists
hour?
managed to reach the tunnel. Then it became clear just how terrible the aftermath was. The tunnel floor was covered with passed out, stomped upon people. Doctors and rescue workers resuscitated over 10 victims, but the number of the injured was so high that there weren't enough specialists for everyone. Then the information appeared that people had died in the stampede. In the following hour, while dancing and fun continued in the festival area, 10 casualties were confirmed. An hour later, when the event was officially stopped, 15 deaths were reported.
What?
In the evening, when Germany's Minister of Internal Affairs appeared before the press, he informed the public of hundreds of wounded people and 18 dead. Yet the disaster's ultimate scale was revealed the following day. In the aftermath of the Love Parade 2010, 652 people got injured,
What?
and 21 people died. One of them was Clancy Ridley, who died in front of her shocked friend, as well as students Clara and Marta, for whom this party became the last one.
Wow.
The most terrifying thing is that all the victims at the festival died because of ribcage injuries. The people were crushed by the crowd, yet no one was blamed for their deaths. Perhaps this was because literally everyone involved in holding the Love Parade was responsible, with the exclusion of the visitors themselves. Knowing full well that the festival usually attracts over 1 million fans, the authorities allowed it to be held in a closed area that could hold 250,000 visitors at most. But even for that number of people, the organizers were supposed to create a few emergency exits, 450 meters wide. Instead, the venue's only passage was just 30 meters wide. Despite these blatant violations, the city authorities signed all the permits for holding the Love Parade. The truth is that the last permit was only received 3 days before the event, and the lifting gates to let the ambulances through were dismantled hours before the festival started. When all of this led to a deadly catastrophe, the city's mobile network stopped functioning due to a system overload. All because the organizers of the Love Parade didn't even file a request to install special systems that would ensure mobile connection for 1 million people in a city with a population that's 2 times smaller. None of this can be blamed on some kind of coincidence. Yet sometimes it's very tempting to blame anything to avoid having to believe that one person single-handedly caused incredible amounts of misery. When the 4th annual Route 91 Harvest Country Music Festival was organized in Las Vegas on October 1st, 2017, over 22,000 people came there. A married couple of school teachers, Frank and Autumn Bignami, also didn't want to skip this event. Having left their 3 children at home, they wanted to have fun together, just like in the days of their youth. Traditionally, the festival was held on the open ground in Las Vegas Village, opposite the Luxor Hotel Casino Complex and across the road from Mandalay Bay. If you were to go on its top floors, you'd see the dance area in full view. So, when a new guest requested a suite with a view of the festival a few days before the event, the hotel employees didn't question the reasons. Maybe the 64-year-old Stephen Paddock wanted to watch the festivities from the window of his luxury suite. So, why not? Yet in the beginning, there were no free rooms in the area where the man wanted to stay. So only on the night before the Route 91 Harvest Festival started, he, as a good client, was transferred free of charge to suite number 135 on the 32nd floor with a direct view of the festival. At 10 p.m. October 1st, one of the biggest tragedies in the history of the United States happened. The multi-thousand audience of Route 91 Harvest heard the sound of machine gun fire. The singer, Jason Aldean, continued performing for a few more seconds and then fled from the stage. At that moment, the people realized something horrible was happening. The shooting went on for the next minute almost ceaselessly, and the terrified festival attendees started running, falling onto the ground and shielding their loved ones with their bodies. They didn't realize yet that someone had opened fire at them from the Mandalay Bay Hotel, where the very next second, a guard, who had been summoned to the 32nd floor, was shot. A minute later, the police already knew about the shooting, and in 6 more minutes, they started surrounding the hotel. Yet that entire time, the shooter kept on firing hundreds of bullets into the defenseless crowd. Frank Bignami felt pain in his hand and understood he must have been shot. The man pressed his wife Autumn to his chest, not realizing yet that she had been wounded in the back, chest, abdomen, and face. Side by side with the couple, other terrified festival attendees were curled up on the ground and near the scenery. They'd already spent 7 minutes under the deadly rain of lead. By this time, the police had already reached the 31st floor and realized that the shooting was happening on the floor above. At 10:15, 11 minutes after the first shots, the guns finally went silent. Yet no one knew for how long. The police officers went to the 32nd floor, and there they found a wounded guard who told them the bullets had been fired from room 135. Immediately, they started searching the neighboring rooms and evacuating people from there, but no one entered Stephen Paddock's suite. There was an order to wait for Special Forces officers. Yet another hour passed until the soldiers finally broke into Paddock's room. The sight of it shocked even the most experienced commandos. The entire hotel suite was swamped with firearms and ammunition. The police seized 23 weapons, including carbines, shotguns, semi-automatic and automatic rifles, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and spare parts. In the 11 minutes of shooting, Paddock fired 1,058 rounds from 15 different weapons. After this, he killed himself with a revolver shot. The special forces found the gunman already dead, so the doctors immediately rushed to help the injured people, and there were hundreds of them. 413 people received bullet wounds, and the panic caused the number of injured people to rise to 867.
What?
At the same time, 58 festival attendees died on the spot, and 2 more passed away in the hospital. Although Autumn Bignami survived, due to her many injuries, she had dozens of surgeries, spent months hospitalized, and still has a lot of shrapnel in her face and body. Her jaw injury turned out to be so serious that for a year, Autumn had to eat only soft food through a tube and relearn how to speak again. Although the doctors weren't sure she would ever be able to do it. Today, the woman can speak again, but she's lost some of her teeth, and the entire right side of her face has gone numb. Autumn always feels pain in her face, which intensifies with every move, and brushing her teeth has become a daily torture for her. Yes, Autumn has survived the biggest mass shooting in the US, organized by one person. Still, neither she nor the other victims and their families have found out why Stephen Paddock ruined their lives. The only version is that the man got enraged with the casino. As it turned out, not only was he a gambler, it was his sole source of income. The investigators assumed the constant stress or a big loss had troubled his mental health. I have a question though. How likely does this version seem if we take into account the fact that Paddock had spent at least a year planning his crime? During that time, he went to different US states and officially bought all of the weapons found in his suite, as well as some of the 24 guns seized later at his house, totaling over $62,000 in value. Furthermore, the man had frequented Las Vegas Village before, checking different hotels' windows' views of the space where the festival would be held. Eventually, he checked in at Mandalay Bay almost a week before the tragedy and spent days transferring his weapon arsenal to his suite in regular suitcases. Moreover, after the shooting, a note was found in Paddock's room. He used it for keeping track of his ammunition expenditure. It looks like a well-planned, cold-blooded mass murder with no clear motive. This makes the Route 91 Harvest tragedy even more horrible, if that's even possible. The very fact that any mass event can potentially turn into a catastrophe isn't particularly relaxing. Sadly, the story of the Astro World Festival in 2021 only exacerbated these worries. It was the third music festival in Houston organized by the extremely popular rapper Travis Scott. The artist's fans started gathering before the entrance at 7 a.m., yet they didn't even wait for the entrance gate to the area to be opened. They broke through the checkpoint half an hour early. Unlike them, one of Scott's young fans, 9-year-old Ezra Blunt, who came to Astroworld with his father, was keeping a calm appearance. However, in reality, the boy was very excited, waiting for his idol's performance. The festival was traditionally held at NRG Park at a venue that could accommodate up to 200,000 people at the same time.
200.
Yet the organizers decided to let in no more than 50,000 people. To ensure the safety and the orderly behavior of such a crowd, the area was patrolled by almost 530 police officers and around 90 private guards working in shifts. Medical help areas were also designated. Yet from the very beginning, nothing went to plan. At just 2 p.m., when the festival was just supposed to be officially opening, a few hundred fans broke into the VIP entrance, trampling the fence and the metal detectors.
That's messed up.
The territory had already been packed with people, crowding around the secondary stages and already reserving their places near the main stage where Travis Scott was supposed to perform in the evening. Young Ezra's father carried him on his shoulders and also moved closer to the platform so that his son could see the stage better. The man might have already noticed that the crowd around him was overexcited, but he had no idea to what extent. In less than 2 hours after the festival's start, around 55 injured visitors had already sought medical help. And a few dozen minutes later, over 150 people broke another entrance in the area. Then, the guards warned Travis Scott that the crowd was becoming aggressive and unruly. But the show had to go on. When the timer that counted down 30 minutes to the rapper's appearance finally appeared, the multi-thousand crowd pressed as close as possible to the main stage. According to the official data, 50,000 visitors with tickets entered the area at that moment. Yet, around 5,000 more trespassed and entered the festival venue without tickets. So, when Travis Scott went on stage at 9:02 in the evening, he faced a 55,000 crowd that almost immediately went berserk. During the first 9 minutes of the rapper's performance, the spectators reported at least 4 cases of serious injury. For some of the victims, they called 911. The crowd was going insane and formed a closer and closer lock around the stage and the fences. At some point, Ezra's father, with his son on his shoulders, realized he was losing the ground under his feet. With all his remaining force, he shoved his surroundings with his elbows, trying to keep standing upright and, most importantly, keep a hold of his child. Yet the world around him started darkening, and Blunt Sr. passed out. Many people ended up in such a tight space that they could no longer breathe. From all directions, you could hear despaired cries for help. At 9:25, Travis Scott had to stop the show for the first time.
Somebody help jump in real quick.
Right before the stage, a few people passed out, and others were begging to be let through the gate to escape the stampede. The show resumed almost immediately, but in a few minutes, 2 attendees went up to the video operator's platform, begging for the show to be stopped because someone had died in the audience. Yet Travis seemingly didn't know about the catastrophe in the crowd and went on performing for 45 more minutes after the first stop, although he had to pause the show 2 more times.
Stop that show! Stop that show! Stop that show!
That whole time, most fans went on having fun, while the medics were trying to resuscitate several of the people who'd become unconscious in the crowd. Only when the attendees started leaving did the scale of the tragedy become clear. In the stampede before the stage, over 300 fans sustained injuries, and 10 people were crushed to death by the crowd. When Blunt Sr. came around, he immediately tried to find his son Ezra. Yet, the man was given the tragic news. The boy had been hospitalized with a brain swelling and trauma of almost all organs, eventually dying in the hospital and becoming the 10th victim of the deadly events at Astroworld 2021. After a long investigation, the state authorities didn't press charges against either Travis Scott or the other organizers. So, even though you're not gonna like this, I'll still end this video with a bit of lecturing. No matter how romantic or fun the
he was supposed to get charged with, what?
atmosphere of a loud music festival seems to be, remember that reality's not a Hollywood movie.
Very sad.
First of all, ensure your safety, and then you can infuse your life with a bit of rock and roll. Or, as an alternative, continue to safely watch the other videos on my channel.
The video. Interesting video. It's pretty sad. Wow.